Well, hello and good evening. Welcome to the Mythical Ireland Library. This is Live Irish Myths, episode number 287. I had to double check. I was like, I'm sure it's 287. And I'm your host, Anthony Murphy. And as it says in that sign over my shoulder, I hope you're all keeping well. It is a rainy, dull, but mild evening in the Boyne Valley. It was sunny earlier on. We had a bit of summer weather, but some heavy rain this evening. Forecast for tomorrow is good. And I hope it lives up to its billing, because I have one of my semi-regular Newgrange Farm Archaeological Park tours tomorrow, and our group, of course, will also be visiting the Chamber of Newgrange. Looking forward to that. If you're not booked in, it's too late. The ticket sales are closed, so I'm sorry. There are 2 dates available in August, though, if you are still interested in that. Big news today is that after just over a year since I began working on it, the Fornox monograph has gone to print. That has been both exhausting and exhilarating. And the final push over the past week or so to get all the proofreading done and editing and catching as many errors as possible and just improving the text as much as possible. And proofread a total of 5 times. 5 times. So this is what a draft printed copy of the monograph looks like. So it will be, in terms of dimensions, it will be the same size as the other monographs. Number 1 was Finn and the Salmon of Knowledge. And yes, Anthony, that's the one you take away, and this is the one you keep. Number 2 is Bowen, the Goddess of the River Boyne and the Milky Way. The Finn monograph, the first one, was 72 pages. Bowen was 104 pages. The Fornox monograph will be 196. So it'll be thicker than the 2 of those put together. And a moment of, I suppose, exhilaration and relief. And at the same time, there's a tiny bit of sadness, because, like, when you're working on a project that's, you may look at the book when you get it and say, it's not all that big, it's not all that comprehensive. But in fact, it is, in a small space, or a relatively small space, a comprehensive overview of Fornox's archaeology, history, myth and legend, place name, wider landscape, an exploration of other Neolithic monuments in that complex of monuments, other late Neolithic monuments, other Bronze Age monuments. And of course, the first colour photographs of the artifacts, the principal artifacts and finds from both Fornox 1 and Fornox 2, as well as what I believe will be the first comprehensive photographic gallery of all of the decorated stones at Fornox. So people go there and they take pictures of certain stones, which are immediately visible. But there's a number of panels of megalithic art at Fornox that a lot of people who don't have the monograph, because nobody has it yet, miss. Because it's easy to do so, because they're not as obvious as the others, and they're perhaps a little bit hidden, or just hard to spot. So I actually began writing the monograph in early July of 2023. So it has taken just over a year to write, design, take all the photography or organize to get photography from the National Monument Service archive, showing the installation of the roof of Fornox. So that's, I believe, I could be mistaken, I believe that might be the first time those photographs will have been seen by the public. And also then, as I say, the artifacts, because the only book ever published about Fornox and my copy is slightly battered and tattered because it's been used so much over the last year, was P.J. Hartnett, the excavator's original paper, Proceedings of the Royal Irish Academy, Excavation of a Passage Grave at Fornox, County Meath, published in 1957. And so the only photographs of the finds were featured in monochrome imagery. So I believe, now I could be mistaken, and if I am, I'm happy to be mistaken, but I believe this is the first time the artifacts will be seen in colour. I say the principal artifacts. There's about 12 or 14 pages of pictures of the principal artifacts. Convenient that I should be able to get photographs of that new discovery at Heathtown into the book. So I'm going to give you the sneakiest of sneak previews of just one of the spreads, as it were. Just to show you what the pages about the megalithic art are like. And these will probably have proofing marks on them. So for instance, there's a spread. And remember, this will be folded in the middle. This is 2 pages. That's stone C, the famous chevron stone at Fornox. So the main photograph there is spread over 2 pages. And the text with a little bit of proofing and editing. And then some close-up pictures of various aspects of the stone. A stone that a lot of people visiting Fornox, in fact, I would say the overwhelming majority of people in Fornox never see stone D and don't even know it's there. They may notice this on top of the corbelling, this stone, and they may notice the bands of megalithic art, but they've certainly never seen, I think in most cases, the top surface of that stone. And so on and so forth. A section that, of course, I would be particularly interested in is the section on the late Neolithic henges of the Fornox complex. So there is a page or a spread, and there on one page, 2 aerial views of Micnon's town henge, which you'll have heard me talking about before. I believe it's the only late Neolithic embanked henge in Ireland that you can drive across, because at some point in the past few centuries, somebody built a road over it. And when you're driving along that road, you go over kind of a bit of a hump and then another hump, and that's you crossing the banks of the henge. Anyway, after a very, very busy couple of weeks, I mean, 7-day weeks, 12-hour days, finally today, after I think I may have tested the patience of the printers. And the printers, by the way, I'm happy to tell you, are the same printers who printed the first 2 monographs and Return to Segish. And that is Anglo Printers here in Drogheda, who I find very good. Always happy with the quality of the work that they produce. And believe it or not, I have shopped around, and their prices are actually very competitive. So the keenest price and absolutely no compromise on quality. Looking forward now to getting physical printed copies in my hands, and looking forward to fulfilling all those pre-orders, since I started taking pre-orders for the book probably before last Christmas. So there's lots and lots of people waiting for their pre-order. They will all be signed by myself, of course. And this is book 10, published book. I have another couple of books. I have another one finished, the Return to Segish Companion. And I've about 70,000 words written of another book that's not finished. And more plans between now and Christmas. More plans, so keep posted. And for the most up-to-date information about all that, I suggest that you become a Mythical Ireland patron at patreon.com/Mythical Ireland. That address is scrolling at the bottom of the screen. You're helping basically to make all of this happen, all of you. Thanks from the bottom of my heart to all of you who contributed to the GoFundMe campaign. The GoFundMe campaign was for 2 things. First of all, to help defray the cost of printing the book. And secondly, to help pay for the photography. So I got some beautiful photos of the artifacts from the National Museum. I got nice photos of the installation of the Fornox roof in the 1950s from the National Monument Service. I had to pay for those, and they came with a price tag, particularly the museum ones. Now I'm very happy to include those, and I wasn't put off by that. But thank you very much to every one of you who contributed. Those of you who contributed €50 or more are named in the book. I think it's on page 4, just before the contents, actually. So very early in the book, there's a little section saying a special thanks. And all of the people who contributed €50 or more, as I promised they would be, are named and thanked individually. So thank you to all of you. If you didn't, or if you contributed less, don't feel that you didn't make a contribution. It all matters. As Tesco, the Tesco slogan in Ireland goes, every little helps, And I'm just relieved. I'll be honest, I'm actually exhausted, burnt out today. For the first time in a good while, I have symptoms of burnout. I get these physical symptoms when I've kind of been doing a huge amount of work and stressing myself a bit. And they include sort of dizziness and a feeling of having full ears and just, but I'm okay. I'm feeling better actually since I finally clicked the approve button. So the printer sends an on-screen proof. And I sent the cover this morning, and I had to reject the cover several times because there were tiny little tweaks to be made. And then eventually, after 3 or 4 efforts, it was like approve. And then the full text takes longer to approve because I still have to read it on screen. I have to make sure that in exporting the file from the design program to create a PDF of the book, I have to make sure that I haven't introduced a mistake somewhere, hit enter somewhere and broken the text the wrong way, or just something that has happened in that process. So I literally, even though it looks fine on the screen when I'm exporting it, I still have to check it, and I checked every page. There may still be typos. It gets to the point with your own writing where you don't see your own errors. I hope as many of those have been picked up as possible. I know there are still errors in all my other printed books, and every author knows this. Even some of the classic multi-million selling 20th century literary classics have typos in them. If I've omitted anything or left anyone out or whatever, I do sincerely apologize for that. Sometimes you just get so close or too close to your own material that at the end you're like, geez, I can't. By the time I approved it today, I actually didn't want to see it again. And now, of course, the excitement is when people get their printed copies, how they will receive it. And it's meant for a general audience, but I believe archaeologists will enjoy it too. I believe it to be a very good summary of Fornox and everything that is special about that monument. But yeah, when I set out to write it, I envisaged a 100-page monograph, maybe a stretch into 120. And actually, the very first pre-orders were cheaper than it is now because I realized as it went on that there was more work involved and all of the rest. I actually can't wait to get copies in my hands and to get them out to you, all of you who've pre-ordered it. If you're watching this and you haven't done so and you're interested in getting yourself a copy, I'll send the link just now. Of course, the Mythical Ireland website is mythicalireland.com. mythicalireland.ie will also bring you there, by the way. Actually, just double check that when I say it, because I had to pay for renewal of that domain recently and I never checked it afterwards. There you go. Yeah, it just redirects to mythicalireland.com. Anyway, I better say hello to some people before you all start getting annoyed. But yeah, just to say thanks to all of you, especially for both your excitement and your patience, because it was originally supposed to be published on spring equinox, but a few weeks before that, I realized I wasn't going to get the photography from the National Museum in time and that I wasn't going to get it finished in time. So I just extended the deadline, and anybody who'd pre-ordered was very understanding. Believe it or not, in all that time, I only had one person cancel their pre-order because of the delay. they were annoyed that it was delayed. But the way I look at it is there was a very good reason for the delay, and that was to make it the best book possible. So the launch is on Sunday week, the 4th of August. That is taking place in the Highlanes Gallery in Drogheda, here in my home city in the Boyne Valley, not far from either Newgrange or Fornox. It's at 1 p.m. on Sunday, the 4th of August. It's an open invitation. So any of you who are in Ireland, or even if you're abroad right now and you're going to be in Ireland on Sunday, the 4th of August, please do tip along to the Highlanes Gallery and you'll be given a very warm welcome. Looking forward to seeing at least some of you there for the official launch. Anyway, I better say hello to Elaine Dent Lingenfelter, because she's the first in the house tonight, and she's saying it's 31 Celsius or 88 in Texas, and she's calling that cooler. Wow. And a big congratulations to you for all the milestones. You worked hard and you deserve all the success. By the way, I'm so jealous of Johnny. Johnny Wilson, isn't it? From Dallas, Texas, who has been a regular viewer of the live streams and a regular commenter, is in Ireland at the moment and attended the Monumental Ireland and Mythical Ireland joint tour of the Hill of Ishnok on Saturday. What a delight to meet him in the flesh. I shared that photo on the Mythical Ireland community. I think that was yesterday. It might have been Saturday evening. And thank you. And the reason Elaine is mentioning milestones, that was the subject, or the main subject of the email newsletter that went out yesterday. And I keep saying that, if you haven't done so already, become a Mythical Ireland insider by signing up to the email newsletter. Generally send out 2 emails a week. In the past week, my last Sunday of last week's email was a day late, so it landed on Monday, and I didn't send another one until yesterday. So technically, there's actually only 1 email in the past week. But yeah, they're long read emails, by the way, something like 1,500 to 2,000 words. So they're not brief snapshots. They're not just advertisements for things. They're informative, I hope you find, and education. Lily Shambles is in the house. Evening, you are well. And she then corrected us to say, hope you are. Yes, indeed. Apart from the aforementioned slight burnout, Lily, all good, can't complain. I hope, by the way, I hope you're in good form too. Lexi Erickson is telling us it's 26 Celsius in Denver and it's a beautiful day. That sounds more manageable. What is it right now in Ireland? I suspect it's about 16, 17. Although it's a bit muggy. This might be a little bit higher. 17. There you go. 17 degrees right now at Dublin Airport. So there you go. Thanks, Lexi. Great to see you, as always. Rex Fortenberry is in a steamy, damp, moist, wet Louisiana. Like Fionn McCool with his Fianna, I'm ready for Anthony to spin a mighty yarn. Brilliant stuff, Rex. Keep cool over there and, keep dry by the sounds of it too. Tuesday Thompson is wishing us a happy Mythology Monday. Well, many happy returns. And I hope your Tuesday turns out to be a fantastic one. Johnny Wilson is saying hello from Westport, the aforementioned Johnny, who we met at Ishnok. Great to see you. Delighted, actually, to hear that you made the effort to walk to Bridget's Well at Kildare. A very special well. I was there in late April myself for the first time, believe it or not. Very, very special. And Johnny, I hope you have a fabulous time in Ireland. It was a real pleasure to meet you, to put a face to the name, as they say. Yet another of the Mythflix tour. A while back when the pandemic was still raging, we never knew when we were going to get to meet face to face. It's so good to meet so many of you. Samantha Healy is saying, good evening, Anthony, and all the tour. Fine evening to yourself, Samantha. Burr Whelan is saying, are we having a celebration for the 300th? Oh, yes. Absolutely. That's 14 weeks away, by the way. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's Samhain. That's nearly Halloween. Wow. That's if I live stream once a week between now and then. Burr, if you've got any ideas, let us have them. Elaine is saying that she's jealous of Johnny. And of course, Johnny's enjoying slightly reduced temperatures here in Ireland, although it rained heavily Saturday morning and it was still raining when we were assembling at Ishnock for the beginning of the tour. And literally, as soon as we started walking up the hill to begin the tour, it stopped raining and it didn't rain again. Brilliant. Thanks, Samantha. Yes, indeed. I hope that you all enjoy the Fornox book. I think you will. I have a good feeling about it. I think a lot of people are going to really like it. Mariana Dunn is in the house saying hello from Alexandria, Virginia. Kudos on going to print with your latest monograph. Thank you, Mariana. And your pre-order will be winging its way across the ocean. As well, not as soon as I get copies. It may take a few days to get them all signed, enveloped, and sent away. But, yeah. I don't know how to pronounce that. Is that yeah? I'm looking forward to seeing it in print. Yeah. Anne Scott Doherty's in the house. Hello there, Anne. Say hello to Bill for us, won't you? Great to see you. I hope you are in good form. Tom King is in the house. Oh, it's a damp one at the forge this evening. Not to mind. Feet up, and it's story time. Enjoy. Yes, indeed. Tom, I don't know. I know you have your feet up at times, but I think you work very hard. I think you'll be probably hammering steel throughout this episode. Am I wrong? Helen Harris Chader says, greetings, Anthony and the Tua. Just back from jury duty in Deadwood, South Dakota. Not a shootout this time for you. I would say enjoy that, but I'm sure it's not all that enjoyable. Barb Jordan is in the house. Hello, Barb. Good to see you again. As always, a great pleasure to welcome you into the library. Samantha Boothroyd is saying good vibes, greetings, you mythical friends, and you, Anthony. Yes, indeed, and the same to you, Sandra. Greetings and Banachty. How's you cutting? Says Nora Gaffney O'Connor. GAE of Galair. I am ready for more fun frolics. I think you're watching the wrong live stream if you want fun. There was some humor momentarily when I can think of it. Cheesy dad jokes, as you know, are a specialty of mine. Alan Hoskins is in Ballina, Killaloe. A quick hello for now. We'll have to catch up later on this evening. Enjoy the gathering. Congratulations to the new book, actually. Thanks, Alan. And we'll see you on the replay, as it were. Shay Payne is saying, ooh, looks great. Yeah, I hope, as I say, the first two monographs, I just really love the feel of them. The monograph, the Fornox book, I think will be nice from the point of view. It'll be a nice travel companion. It's just that kind of size where you'd kind of bring it with you, And I can see a lot of people kind of bringing it with them on their visits to Fornox so they can better get a sense of the place, Thank you, Barbara Murphy, who's congratulating me on the new book. Hello from a nice, comfortable Tucson. 37.8. That's not comfortable. That's boiling. 100 Fahrenheit. Can't wait for my book to arrive. I hope you enjoy it, as I'm sure you will. Nora Gaffney O'Connor is waving at you. Me? You see anyone else in the room? Waving at someone, certainly. Barbara was a moment or two late because she was putting in a load of laundry. Chores, eh? Bonnie Aguilar is saying hello from Milwaukee in Wisconsin. Bonnie, what a pleasure to welcome you into the library. Hope you're in good form and ready for story time. Elmo Mack is in Poland. Sorry, I can't watch tonight. No problem, Elmo. Well, we'll see you hopefully on the replay and maybe on the next episode. Molly McNaughton is saying, sorry I'm late. Just saw it as I was scrolling. Giagwich from Virginia. A very good afternoon to you, Molly. No need for apologies. This is a no-brone zone. Brone in being the Irish word for sadness. So we're delighted to see you here on YouTube. And you must be subscribed if you got the notification, which is brilliant. Mavanway is in the house. Good evening, all. Creeping in a bit late. Oh, bless you, Anthony, for doing live Irish Myths while you're so tired. Looking forward to seeing your new book in the flesh. I just can't wait to. Do you know what's lovely? When I publish a calendar or a book, it's seeing the photos. And, when Tom was starting to do his hand-forged artworks through the Mythical Ireland website, people were, on the Mythical Ireland community, were posting pictures of when it arrived and, posing with the new publication or whatever. And it's such a delight to see all that. Who else have we got? Joe Butler quietly saying hello from Colorado, late and sitting in the back with a glass of wine. If you're going to be late, sitting at the back's a good idea. I love the whole sitting with a glass of wine thing. That's very stylish. That's the coolest way to arrive to a lecture. And this is not a lecture, by the way. This is not a lecture hall. This is a rabbit hole. This is a warren where we explore rabbit holes deeply and in a labyrinthine fashion. In fact, we've been known on some episodes to go so far down the rabbit hole that we got lost. And some of our loved ones are sending out search parties for us. Lynn Murphy's in the house, says hello, Lynn. Green heart also to you. Thanks for joining us. Always a pleasure, as I keep saying, to welcome another Murphy into the house, into the library. Adrian O'Beglin is in the house. Adrian, hope you're in good form. Thanks for joining us. And I hope you enjoy reading time. I lied. I'm here. Not really a lie. Just a change of plan this end. Brilliant stuff, Alan. I love it. Ad Astral Music is saying hello, Anthony and the two. A lovely sunset last night from the forest of to Braddon near the cairn, which I noticed the entrance points towards Howth Head. Perhaps the dolmen there. Wouldn't be at all surprised. Not at all surprised would I be. Astro is in the house. Hello, Astro. A very good evening to you. I hope your evening is astronomical. Simply Life is saying greetings from Slovenia, watching on YouTube. So looking forward to visiting Ireland 2 weeks for a sacred journey. Brilliant stuff. I hope you enjoy yourself while you are here. Brilliant. Lynn is telling us it's warm in North London. Windows open. I have the window open here. Now, it's teeming with rain outside, but it's very, very mild. Sorry, I've probably a dog here. The things that happen on live TV. I have a dog hair in my mouth. Sue Prenter is saying, evening all, hope all well. Dogs and I sitting, waiting patiently for this evening's contribution. Sue, lovely to see you, Sue, as always. What a pleasure. And say hello to the doggos for me. By the way, Fornock's book pre-order to remind me of my visit. Yes, indeed. And thank you for the cup of tea, by the way, that day. I didn't forget that kind gesture. I thought we were having a whiskey party to celebrate. Not such a good idea for me, though. Last time I had whiskey, I had to literally crawl home from my landlord's house. Yeah, I was thinking of doing something where we combine... apologies. I didn't get it. The dog here, that is. Yeah, I was thinking of combining a tasting with some mythology. I don't know how that would work, but been discussing an idea with Tom King. So watch this space. Debbie Sheehy is arriving late. It's a no-brown zone, Debbie. No need to apologize. It's perfectly okay. Great to be able to join this one. Sorry also, I couldn't make the Ishnok tour guided tour on Saturday, as I was really looking forward to it. Photos show it went really well. I hope to get to another tour with you soon. Brilliant stuff, Debbie. Semi-regular public tours will be announced on the Mythical Ireland tour, website tours page. Ali says, hello from Too Hot Tucson. Some people are saying it's cool, and they're still talking about 100 degrees. It's amazing. Teresa and, what is that, Kylie, is it, are here from Newberg, Oregon. A very, very good afternoon, early afternoon, to our friends in the Pacific Northwest. Always very happy to say hello to our Pacific Northwesterners. Viking Ireland says, hope yesterday went well. What was yesterday? Oh, Saturday. Taoiseach. Yes. Brilliant. I enjoyed it. The feedback was lovely conversation and questions afterwards. Helen, I'm seeing Helen's comment again. I'm seeing lots of comments again. That always happens. I don't know why that happens. Anyway, I think I'm up to date. So let me get on with the show. Is there anything else? Yeah. A big thank you to all of the people who have been joining the Mythical Ireland community on Facebook over the past while. We just reached the 40,000 mark. Was that yesterday? It was certainly in the last couple of days, wasn't it? So yeah, 40,000. And that comes hot on the heels of, let me see when that was, a day ago. That was yesterday. That came hot on the heels of the Instagram account, the Mythical Ireland Instagram, passing 15,000. And only a couple of months ago, the main Mythical Ireland Facebook page was celebrating passing 80,000. So just on the two Facebook groups and Instagram alone. Do your sums, Anthony. 120, 135,000 followers. I know some of those are duplicates, I understand. Anyway, shh, be very quiet. I'm hunting wabbits, says Rex. Joe Butler, hooray, 40,000, all the more people to be managed. There's not that many stray posts, or, there's not that many misbehaviors, thankfully. The community is a good one, in fairness. We're continuing this evening talking about Christianity, and in particular, monasticism and the monastic clergy. Now, I know you might be saying, and I know there'll definitely be some of you either watching live or watching back afterwards who'll say, why is something about Irish mythology talking about Christianity? And actually, there's a fair number of people who have something, what is it? Something in their craw. I can't, too tired to think. But who have a bee in their bonnet about Christianity. So when we're talking about Christianity on Live Irish Myths, it's generally to do with Christianity in the first millennium AD and in the early centuries of the second millennium AD, at a time when they had very strong relationships with Irish kings, and a time when they were the ones writing down all our mythology. So they are very important, no matter what you think of Christianity itself. And there's no need for us to denigrate it too much, because we'll be just covering, we'll be annoying some people, and we'll be suiting others. But it's probably just a case of we're reading it because it's an important part of the story of Ireland. And of course, very little to do with the modern church, apart from the fact that it was where the modern church was founded. Anna L is in the house. Good evening, Anthony and the two. Greetings from rainy at the moment, Balbriggan. Yes, indeed. And Anna L, I met in person at a tour that I did at Fornox 2 weekends ago. Was that Saturday or Sunday? I think it was Sunday. I think it was the 7th, was it? No, it was the week after. Yeah. But Anna, what a pleasure to meet you that day. And of course, I think we discussed that last week. Yeah, rainy at the moment, Balbriggan. As I said earlier, it's teeming down here in Drogheda at the moment. I remember, says Barbara, there were about 800 people when I joined. And I was a regular watching for several years before I joined. Yeah, I know how things grow. The plant or the tree needs tending and water and a bit of love and care. And once you do that, it'll grow, Adrian has been catching up on YouTube. Brilliant. So I'm going to need the reading glasses. Sorry, I'm just showing my age. But I don't know if I told you this before. I probably did, but everything between here and about, sorry, you need to see it on camera, and about here, about a foot or a foot and a half, I need glasses for. Everything beyond that is perfectly sharp. But I've had a deterioration over the last, certainly the last few years. I've had an increased, what is it called? What do they call it? A prescription, is it? On the lenses. I've had to get stronger ones. So I'm actually finding increasingly these days that I need to have my reading glasses pretty much everywhere with me. I can't read the phone unless I hold it there. That's actually reasonably, I can read it there now. That's reasonably sharp there. But if I hold it there, it's blurry. And if I try to read it there, I can't. All part of the aging process. I'm afraid I'm not the young pup I used to be. So this is called the Second Order Monastic Clergy, and this is the rise of monasticism. About the middle of the 6th century, a great monastic religious movement took its rise, mainly from the monastery and college of Clonard, founded by St. Finan about the year 527. Now, he is also known as Finian. He has it here, F-I-N-N-E-N. I think he's generally known as St. Finian, F-I-N-I-A-N. Just in case I'm imagining that, I'm just going to do a quick Google. Apologies. St. Finian of Clonard. Yeah. Oh, F-I-N-N-I-A-N. Yeah, but he has a Finan. about the year 527. So it's interesting because if you remember, we discussed this. I'm already going down a rabbit hole. One sentence I've read, and there's a rabbit hole appearing. The rabbit hole is this. You may remember a few years ago during the pandemic, we did a sort of an offshoot of Live Irish Myths called Live Irish Myths in Conversation. One of my guests was the brilliant dendrochronologist Mike Bailey, who has since passed away, sadly, in recent months. And he pointed out that the foundation of churches in Ireland took a considerably steep turn around the time that we would know in European history as the time of the Justinian plague, sort of in the years sort of 535 to 540 AD, that sort of time. Suddenly there's the foundation of churches in Ireland goes skyward, and he thinks it might be attributable to the fact that Ireland had been struck by the plague and lots of people were dying, and in times of crisis people turned to religion. Historically they certainly did anyway. Just making sure I haven't missed anyone. With you on the eyes thing, Anthony, says Alan. Age is a factor and screens and monitors speed it. Yeah, I know. Which is why I'm increasingly using typewriters. And I am not joking. I have my IBM Selectric 3 on the desk right now. And I've been using typewriters. I reckon I've probably written several 100,000 words on typewriters in the past few years. Saoirse Ní Cheandal is in the house. Feels good to say that, doesn't it? What's that about? Saoirse, I missed that. What did I miss? I missed something somewhere along the line. Anyway, I so loved reading the Dendro article, so thanks. Just in case you haven't seen it, I will share the link again because it's on the website. And that's basically a good summary of everything myself and Mike Bailey spoke about in that live stream. Very, very sorry that the man has passed on. He was brilliant. He wasn't just a brilliant scientist. He was brilliant at communicating the results of his science, which were very, very important to the discipline of archaeology, probably to multiple disciplines. And you know what else? He was a really nice human being. So yeah, very sorry that Mike Bailey has slipped off this mortal coil, as it were. I hope that wherever he is, there are abundant trees, and that he's enjoying his new. I was going to say his new life, his otherworld realm. He had spent many years in Wales. This is St. Finan, or St. Finian. And soon after his settlement at Clonard. Clonard is in the county of Meath, in the southern part. Sorry, I'm just going to tell you exactly where. Clonard. There's lots of. The problem is, of course, there's lots of Clonard monasteries now in modern Ireland. Of course, it's in Clonard, I know, but like just to give you. Yeah, it's south of Trim. The monastics were the social safety net of former times, says John Inman. Hello, John. If you were a serf of a monastery, you were not chattel, but were well cared for. When King Henry abolished monasteries, he had to make almoners. What episode did your friend pass? Can't remember, Lynn, offhand. But if you want to search for the original interview we did, or conversation, not an interview. There's no point calling these interviews. They were conversations, and they were very enjoyable. Let me just check. Actually, I can share that if you want to. Here we go. Yeah, still in this rabbit hole. I've only actually read 2 sentences, and it's going to be a long night, says you. Live Irish Myths in Conversation, number 11, Mike Bailey. Just copy that link so you can bookmark it and come back to it later. Unless you want to watch it now, because you're bored listening to me and going down rabbit holes. Yeah, very interesting. He had spent many years in Wales, and soon after his settlement at Clonard, great numbers of disciples, attracted by his learning and holiness, gathered round him. Under him were educated and trained for monastic and missionary work many of the most illustrious fathers of the Irish Church, including the, quote, 12 apostles of Ireland, unquote. And there's a footnote. So let's go down this rabbit hole. The 12 apostles of Éireann were Kieran of Sire, or Sire Kieran, Kieran of Clonmacnoise, and he was the one who owned the Dun Cow, famously, not the Dun Cow, the Dun Calf, the Book of the Dun Cow. Laura Hira was supposedly written on the skin of a calf that was Kieran's favourite. Columba, or Columkill of Iona, and later Kells. Brendan of Clonfert, Brendan of Burr, Columba of Terryglass in Tipperary, Mollace or Lassarian of Devonish, Canis of Ahabo, Rowan of Lara in Tipperary, Movie of Glasnevin, Sinnel of Cleanish in Loch Erne, and Nenny or Nennius of Inishmacsaint in Loch Erne. This list is given by Todd from the Latin Life of St. Finian, but the list of the 12 Irish apostles given in the note on the failure of Angus in LB. Is that LB? Is that Laura Brack? No. That don't know what LB is. I should know. It's short for one of the books. This is the Book of Ballymote. Anyway, I don't know. The failure list has Finnan of Clonard, Finnan of Myvilla or Movilla, and Covgull of Bangor instead of Kieran of Sir Kieran, Mollaise of Devonish, and Sinnel of Cleanish, who are also in Todd's list. In the remaining 9, the 2 lists agree. So that St. Finnan, who was a bishop, is called a doctor of wisdom, and that's in quotes, by the way, and the tutor of the saints of Ireland in his time. That's from O'Cleary. Most of his disciples spent some time also under the spiritual instruction of the holy and venerable Saint Enda in his monastery in Arranmore, who had also studied for a time in Wales. These men, going forth from Clonard in all directions, founded, in imitation of their master Finian, he keeps saying Finnan, but I'm so used to calling him Finian, that's what I'm going to call him, numerous monasteries, schools, and colleges, which subsequently became famous throughout all Europe. So St. Finian was important from the point of view of establishing education centres. Yes, they were primarily for religious learning, but don't forget, these were the centres that would have promoted writing. And in this regard, he is actually very important to the story of the preservation of Irish mythology. And now, new life and vigour were infused into the Irish missionary church, and the work of Patrick and his companions was carried on with renewed zeal and wonderful success. The influence of the Druids was finally broken down, though they still lingered on, but obscurely and feebly for many generations. Remember, folks, always take that stuff with a pinch of salt. Joyce was undoubtedly a devout Catholic. And don't forget that, as we always say, that history, being written by the victor, would tend to perhaps slightly exaggerate these things. The Druids lingered on, but obscurely and feebly. I would say not so obscurely and not so feebly, since they were in the court, as it were, or in the entourage of the kings at all times. Then also arose the zeal for preaching the gospel in foreign lands that gave rise to that vast emigration of Irish missionaries and scholars spoken of farther on. By far the greatest part of the ecclesiastical literature of Ireland relating to those ages is concerned with monastic clergy, both priests and bishops, and with their labourers as missionaries, scholars, and teachers. Of course, it's a funny thing because Ireland's church only became organized into dioceses. It only became fully episcopal in the 12th century following the synods of Rath, Brassel, and Kells Mellifont. But in the first millennium AD, in addition to abbots of various monasteries, some of these abbots were considered to be bishops. It's a funny thing, even though we're really talking about pre-episcopal Ireland. Monastic life. The religious houses of this second class of Irish saints constituted the vast majority of the monasteries that flourished in Ireland down to the time of their suppression by Henry VIII. These are the monasteries that figure so prominently in the ecclesiastical history of Ireland, and it will be interesting to look into them somewhat closely and see how they were managed and how the monks spent their time. The organisation of the Irish Church, and especially of monasteries, was modelled on that of society in general. It was tribal, and the tribal customs pervaded all the arrangements of the monastery. Bishops and priests were attached to tribes and monasteries, having, as already remarked, no well-defined territorial jurisdiction. And that's because, or sorry, that's how it was until the synods of the 12th century, where the boundaries of dioceses were established. So the from what I understand, and remember, I'm not a scholar in this stuff. I'm just a reader of all of this. From what I understand, the monasteries, I'll give you an example. Monaster Joyce, which was founded in the 5th century, just a couple of miles north, a few miles north of where I'm sitting here, home of the famous Murdoch's Cross, the finest high cross in Ireland. I understand that in the era following its establishment and for a century or two, the actual boundaries of its territory, as it were, weren't strictly defined. I imagine that a monastery's sort of area of influence, as it were, varied, expanded and contracted, you know. And of course, it fell into disuse when Mellifont Abbey was founded by the Cistercians in that very influential 12th century. Yeah, and then it had probably much better defined boundaries or area of coverage. I'm not thinking of the right word right now. What would you call a monastery's area of jurisdiction? Is a poor word, because influence is probably not the appropriate word. They don't rule as such, you know. Their area of not missionary, their ministry. Is that a no? That's probably not. Somebody get the right word and paste it into the comments. So help me out here. My brain is switching off for a while because of the forenox, and I'm just tired. Bishops and priests were attached to tribes and monasteries, having, as already marked, no well-defined territorial jurisdiction. When he's using the word jurisdiction, it just sounds kind of too formal, doesn't it? It sounds like it's not just monastic. It sounds like it's governmental and associated with jurisprudence and law. In a passage in the Lauerbrecht, it is stated, quote, "In Patrick's testament, it is decreed that there be a chief bishop for every tribe in Ireland, to ordain ecclesiastics, to consecrate churches, and for the spiritual direction of princes, superiors, and ordained persons." So they are the early bishops and their roles, as it were. The head of a monastery was both abbot and chief over the community. For spiritual direction and for the higher spiritual functions, such as that of ordination, confirmation, consecration of churches, etc., a bishop was commonly attached to every large monastery and nunnery. Yeah, but you see, so Heather is saying diocese and the full Irish. Oh, Gary, how are you doing? Is suggesting parish. But you see, this is, we're talking about in pre-episcopal times, before the establishment, as it were, of formal boundaries and parishes and dioceses. That's why I'm struggling to come up with a word for it. It's an area of jurisdiction, but jurisdiction, I think, is a poor word. You know, an area of ministry. I don't know. I just maybe just not able to come up with the correct term at this moment in time. In all matters concerned with discipline and with the general arrangements of the monastery, the abbot, in his temporal capacity of chief, had jurisdiction over the bishop, as over all the others. But in the spiritual capacity, he was under the authority of the bishop, who also commanded the personal respect due to his high office. We have one instance related by Adamnan, where St. Columkill in Iona humbled himself reverentially in presence of a bishop, a visitor, whom he treats as his spiritual superior. That's from the Tripartite Life. Bede, B-E-D-E, excuse me, that's the Venerable Bede, who wrote the Ecclesiastical History of the English People, which is a very important document because he speaks a lot of Ireland as well. Speaking of Iona in his time, says, quote, this is Bede, "That island is governed by an abbot, who is a priest, to whose authority in disciplinal matters, all the province, to whose authority in disciplinal matters all the province, and even the bishops, are subject, after the example of their first teacher, Columba, who was not a bishop, but a priest and monk, unquote. But the abbot of a monastery might be, and often was, a bishop, in which case no other bishop was necessary. I feel a Father Ted episode coming along here. So a bishop was needed when a bishop was needed, and a bishop wasn't needed when a bishop wasn't needed. If the abbot wanted to and was capable of carrying out the duty of the bishop, he could be a bishop as well as an abbot. But if he felt, do you know what, this is too much of a burden, I think it's going to tax me too much and tire me out, I think I need a bishop. And that's when Len Brennan steps in. The mode of electing a successor to an abbot strongly resembled that for the election of chief. That is, chief in Ireland, Taoiseach, the chief of the clan. We still call our prime minister Taoiseach, or should I say, prime minister is one of the ways that English-speaking people would translate our Taoiseach. Mark Gordon is in the house. Good afternoon to you, Mark. Hope you're in good form. Thanks for joining us. He should be chosen from the fine or family of the patron saint. Oh, here we go. Nepotism, anyone? If for any reason this was impossible, then from the tribe in general. And if none were found in these two, one of the monks was to be elected. One consequence of the tribal organization was a tendency to family succession in ecclesiastical or semi-ecclesiastical offices, as in the lay professions. The office of Erenach, for instance, was hereditary in a family, and in times of confusion during the Danish disturbances, that's the Vikings, when many disciplinal abuses crept in, the offices of bishop and abbot were kept in the same family for generations. Nay, even laymen often succeeded to both, but this was in the capacity of chief, and they sometimes had the tonsure of the minor orders, so that they got the name of clerics, which they really were not. But such men, and if you want more on that, Cabrensis, Topographica, Hibernia, or is it Topographia? Topographica or Topographia? Chapter 3, XXVI, in case you want to follow it up. But such men had properly ordained persons to discharge the spiritual functions. The monastic discipline was very strict, turning on the one cardinal principle of instant and unquestioning obedience. I'm just saying it, right? Some of you wouldn't fit in very well in there. You know, when it comes to, strictness and obedience. I mean, just look at the number of you who turn up late every week for our episodes, and then loudly announce that you've arrived late, and then start quaffing wine and coffee and whiskey at the back of the class. Do you think you'd survive for 2 minutes in a monastery? I am joking, of course. It wouldn't be for me. I suspect if I'd lived in the first millennium AD, I probably would have ended up in a monastery. But as to what my role would be, I'm just not sure. I thrive on variety. I couldn't be made sit and do one thing all day long, Nora Gaffney is finding Danish disturbances very funny. Edna Marie Leading says, guilty. I just walked in too. You see what I mean? You wouldn't last 5 minutes in a monastery. Says you would I want to. Brilliant. Where was I? Each of the most distinguished founders drew up a rule for his own monastery and for all those founded by him, or under his authority as head, a set of regulations as to devotions, food, time for retiring and rising, occupations, and so forth, which were strictly followed in daily life. Every monastery followed some rule, whether drawn up by its own head or adopted. Several of these rules have come down to us and give an excellent idea of the austere conditions under which those old monks lived. In some monasteries, the rule prohibited them from going beyond the outer leash or enclosing wall without special leave. Ironically, in the 20th century, the wonderful late Leo Swan, who was an archaeologist specializing in aerial photography long before drones, specialized in studying the monastic enclosures of Ireland. And I was in Kells in County Meath the other day, and it's amazing. He had pointed out that some of the streets there follow the original enclosure because it's like a big oval. There's streets that almost form a complete oval around the old round tower there. Amazing stuff. So you couldn't go beyond the outer Lish. So, gentlemen, if you were fancying maybe going for a sneaky drink in a shebeen outside the monastic limit, as it were, the boundary, or maybe you are, ladies and gentlemen, thinking of going for an illicit encounter with a member of the other sex. How could you even think of doing such a thing? Yeah, you would need special leave. Yeah, excuse me, Abbott. I'd like to go on the tear. I'd like to go on the piss. Or I have my eye on a nice lady. Do you mind if we go off and no, you will stay here and pray and labor hard and eat next to nothing. There was to be no idleness. See, there you go. So that wouldn't suit some of you at all now. Everyone was to be engaged at all available times in some useful work. A regulation which appears everywhere in our ecclesiastical history, and concerning which numerous references might be given. This love of work is well illustrated in the legend that Saint Maelrowan of Tala never heard the confession of any man who did not support himself by labour. Hang on a second, I just want to check. My eldest daughter is here on a visit, and I'm just wondering if she's going because I want to say goodbye. Just would you mind bearing with me just for one moment? Apologies. No, apparently she hasn't left yet. So if I have to get up again to say goodbye to her, you will, I hope, forgive me for a moment. Yes, Coda is barking his head off in there. Indira Stefaniana is in the house. Sorry, my cell is failing. Please hear songs I've written and sung, Indira, on Bandcamp Lady Liberty Song Cycle. Thanks. And a very good afternoon, Indira, or is it evening? I'm not sure where in the world you are at the moment, but I hope you're in good form. Haven't seen you in a while, so great for you to say hello. Okay, who's got the dad jokes? Oh, yeah, speaking of which, I did promise one or two, didn't I? I can't remember jokes at all these days. I was telling a friend that I'd built a model of Mount Everest, and he asked me, "Is it to scale?" And I said, "No, you dummy. It's to look at." So we were talking about nobody being idle and everybody being put to useful work. Yes, so we're talking about St. Maelrowan of Tala. Never heard the confession of any man who did not support himself by labour. The great anxiety of the communities was to support themselves by the work of their hands, so as to depend as little as possible on the charity of others. Well, I suppose you can understand that. They wanted self-sufficiency, so yeah. In an age before supermarkets, before you could go to Aldi to get your groceries. And this laudable custom was followed not only at home, but also on the continent by those emigrant Irish monks who founded monasteries there. We read in the Bollandists about 7 brothers who went from Ireland to Gaul in the 6th century, quote, on a pilgrimage for the love of Christ, unquote. They settled near the River Marne, and the old biographer goes on to state, quote, they did not live merely on the charity of those whom the pious president, St. Remy, had commended them to, but also on their own industry and the labour of their hands, in accordance with the customs of the religious bodies of Ireland. Let us now glance at the various employments of those busy Irish communities. The monasteries of the second order were what are commonly known as cenobitical establishments, i.e., the inmates lived, studied, and worked in society and companionship, and had all things in common. And they attended Mass and other devotions as a congregation in the church of the monastery. In sleeping accommodation, there was much variety. In some monasteries, each monk having a sleeping cell for himself. Wow, 5-star Hilton. In others, 3 or 4 in one cell. That's more like your, what do they call it? Hostels. Yeah. In some, they slept on the bare earth. Wow, not very comfortable. In others, they used a skin, laid perhaps on a little straw or rushes. Their food was prepared in one large kitchen by some of their own members, specially skilled in cookery. Gordon Ramsay, eat your heart out. And they took their meals in one common refectory. The fare, both eating and drinking, was always simple and generally scanty, poor, and uninviting. No steaks, then, for instance. No garnish, no pepper sauce. Ola Conrad from Denmark has joined us. One moment, please. I have to say bye-bye to my daughter who's going home. Give me one moment. So I just told my daughter Amy there aren't many reasons for interrupting a live stream, but when she's going home and after a stay of a few hours, that's a very good reason to interrupt a live stream. I think you'll agree. Burwhelan can't believe how quiet it is without him rabbiting on. Any pun on the word rabbiting, I wonder? Yes, indeed. Yes. If a cow doesn't produce milk, is it a milk dud or an udder failure? So, Tommy Cooper, some of you on this part of the world who are of a certain vintage, like myself, will remember Tommy Cooper, the late great. So I knocked on the door of this bed and breakfast, and a lady stuck her head out the window and said, "What do you want?" I said, "I want to stay here." She said, "Well, stay there," and shut the window. Where was I? Yes. So we were talking about the poor, scanty, and uninviting food. Well, that's one reason I would not like monastic life. And the fasts were frequent and severe. But on Sundays and festival days, and on occasions when distinguished persons visited, whom the abbot wished to honour, more generous food and drink were allowed. Well, I like that. You know, I think that it should be a custom of live Irish myths that, well, it is actually a custom, you know, that people take out their favorite beverage or, you know, eat a slice of cake or, you know, have that steak that they've been thinking of having, you know, instead of our Sunday Sabbath, as it were, where we have a weekly Monday celebration. Adele Perth, well, we are delighted that you have caught alive because you're watching from the other side of the world, Adele. What a pleasure. Always, always a pleasure to see you and to welcome you. I hope Tuesday, the beginning of your Tuesday, is good as the rain absolutely teems down here on a very dull and dank evening here in the Boyne Valley. Did anyone have good food then, says Barbara? I suspect, I mean, you know, these people kept cattle. Beef has to have been on the menu somewhere, you know? Yeah, you know, a nice ribeye, you know, nice bit of sirloin, you know. When the founder of a monastery had determined on the neighborhood in which to settle and had fixed on the site for his establishment, he brought together those who had agreed to become his disciples and companions, and they set about preparing the place for residence. They did all the work with their own hands, seeking no help from outside. While some levelled and fenced in the ground, others cut down in the surrounding woods timber for the houses or for the church, dragging the great logs along, or bringing home on their backs bundles of wattles and twigs for the wickerwork walls. Even the leaders claimed no exemption, but often worked manfully with axe and spade like the rest. That's something modern society could take a leaf out of that book, couldn't they? When St. Patrick was journeying through Connacht, one of his disciples, Bishop Alcon, wishing to found a church for himself and having obtained his master's sanction, quote, went forth with his axe on his shoulder, unquote, ready to begin his work with his own hands. Well, very laudable altogether. Their favourite was pigs, says Kathy Maydale. Yes, a bit of pork or, a loin of bacon has to have been on the menu. Rashers for breakfast with baby eggs, Sounds very good. Thanks for the warm welcome, Anthony. Dull and dank here this morning. Bloody Baltic. Oh, I'm forgetting it's winter there. But I mean, what kind of temperature would you call Baltic? Is it kind of below zero? Is it like really frosty? Or is it, just less than 30 Celsius? Because, yeah, I'm kind of half joking. But it's great to see you, Adele. It is always. Am I imagining it? Did you say you're coming back to Ireland soon? Or am I imagining that? Forgive me. Every important function of the monastery was in charge of some particular monk, who superintended if several persons were required for the duty, or did the work himself if only one was needed. These persons were nominated by the abbot and held their positions permanently for the time. Make of that what you will. In an ancient manuscript quoted by Stokes, that's our good friend Whitley Stokes, who translated a huge amount of material in his lifetime, quote, for Enda's honourable school in the island of Arran, Mochuda did the fishing, Kieran had the drying of corn, and Alva the bell ringing and door keeping. To be honest, I think I'd fancy the bell ringing and the door keeping rather than the chopping down of trees and the drying of corn and, all the hard labour. I think I could have been a good medieval bell ringer. What do you reckon? -1 Celsius. Yeah, that's cold. That's definitely cold. Fair enough. Yes. But it'll warm up during the day, I'm sure. It's early morning there, isn't it? I hope it warms up during the day. Over the general daily arrangements presided an officer, called in Irish Fer Chiish, meaning literally man of the house. We would call that Faron Chi or Banna Chi for a woman. And in Latin, commonly known as the oikonomos. Sounds very officious. He was a sort of house steward, quote, whose duty was to look after the domestic or internal affairs of the monastery, to see that the house was supplied with fuel and all other necessities, unquote. This arrangement, it will be observed, was nearly identical with the institution of rechtere in great lay houses. There was a tract of land attached to almost every monastery, granted to the original founder by the king or local lord, so that agriculture formed one of the chief employments. This industry was introduced with Christianity, even by St. Patrick himself. Bring out your dead! Bong! Not that kind of bell ringer, Rex. I don't think I'd enjoy that one too much. Heather Marie Leaning says carp. Carp probably on the menu as well. Maybe you can help with the brewing. Oh, yeah. I'd be the taster. Like, as soon as somebody says, we need a taster for the brewery, I'd be like, yep, that's me. I'm not sure that they do any distilling back then. I'd definitely be the taster. We read in the tripartite life, that is, of St. Patrick, that on one occasion, Patrick's muncher, or household, were reaping corn on a farm they had made, i.e. fenced in and reclaimed, at a place called Trian Concovar, or Trian Crohor, near Armagh, and that they became very thirsty, whereupon the saint sent them a vat, drolmach, of whey water. That's where you drink water. You go, hey! I couldn't resist. I'm sorry. What is whey water? Is that just water? Whey. Yeah, it hardly has any alcoholic content. It doesn't sound all that inviting, does it? Whey water, yeah. Whey. Sorry, a little bit of a little moment of juvenile humor there on my part. We gather too from the same passage that they worked on this farm from tierce to vespers, i.e., from about 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. My God, haven't they ever heard of slavery? And taking this along with the suffering from thirst and the various other duties they had to perform, we see that they were at real work, not mere recreation. When returning from work in the evening, the monks brought home on their backs whatever things were needed in the household for that night and next day. Milk was often brought in this manner in a vessel specially made for the purpose, and it was the custom, a very pleasing one, to bring the vessel straight to the abbot that he might bless the milk before use. In this field work, the abbot bore a part in several monasteries, and we sometimes read of men now famous in Irish church history, abbots and bishops in their time, putting in a hard day's work at the plough. The younger monks worked more than the others, and hence the word scolog, which literally signifies a scholar or learner, from skull, a school, has come down to our time to denote a small farmer who works his own land. The effects of the monks' superior tillage are seen in many places to this day, where round the monastic ruins there is an extent of rich land, much superior to that lying beyond. Those who had been tradesmen before entering were put to their own special work for the use of community and guests. Some ground the corn with a quern or in the mill. Some made and mended clothes. Some worked in the smith's forge. Tom King would be brilliant. A smith in an early medieval monastery. In fact, I think that Tom has lived several lifetimes as a smith. I think he goes all the way back to Bronze Age Bohermeen. I really do. I was talking on the Myth and Metal tours last year about how some bronze swords and blades and a spiral, some sort of a spiral pendant had been found in Bohermeen Bog. I'm telling you, that guy has been around before. And I can just picture Tom working away in the forge monastery and having loads of people around him and him showing them how it's done and cracking jokes and being full of laughter as he always is. Or in the carpenter's workshop, while others baked the bread, cooked the meals. Lily Shambles is telling us, I'm currently studying food history. So if anyone has any sources of old Irish recipes, would it be possible for them to let me know on Facebook, please? Well, I'm not sure about recipes, but just immediately from the library, there is a book called Ireland's Green Larder, and it is The Definitive History of Irish Food and Drink. That one, I think you would, Margaret Hickey is the author. That's one, if you haven't got it now, you may have these. That's one. Then there's another one, I'm not sure because I haven't read it yet. There's another book called Land of Milk and Honey. And I'm not sure if that's Milk and Honey. Of course, there was a novel called Breed Mahon, yeah. The Story of Traditional Irish Food, right? There's another one. Land of Milk and Honey, just in case you haven't got it. That was published in the 1990s. And then one that may give you some insight. Now, I've only sort of dipped into this, but this is a very scholarly work, pardon me, and it's called Early Irish Farming by Fergus Kelly. And there's lots of, it's very comprehensive. It runs to 700 pages. Cultivation, farm size, land acquisition, roads, grain products, salt, food for invalids, feasting, trees and woodland dyed plants, cereal cultivation and harvesting, poultry, sheep, offences against animals. I'm sure there's something in that for you. So there's 3 sources that I can immediately recommend offhand. I should be able to put my hand on Land of Milk and Honey. It's up. I think it's up on one of the top shelves there. But I've given you the link. I think pasted in the Amazon link. And Ali, thank you, Ali. Yes, of course. Don't forget the school's folklore collection on duchas.ie. would have lots of old. You can search that too. It's very searchable. I'll just paste that. You probably know about it, but just in case. Joe Butler is laughing because we've descended into yet another rabbit hole. Yes, indeed, we have. Right back to it, Anthony. Just in case I missed any suggestions or any other comments or questions. Okay, definitely mead. Yes. Who was that, by the way? That's Kathy May. Yeah, I'd taste some of that mead. Attached to every Cenobitical monastery was a techoij, a guest house, or hospice. Czech, a house, oigi, or oigage, a guest. Modern, Ia, pronounced EE-A, Ia, AOIDHEADH, Ia, for the reception of travellers, generally placed a little apart from the monks' cells, an institution as old as the time of St. Patrick. So every place had a guest house. Some of the inmates were told off for this duty, whose business it was to receive the stranger, take off his shoes, wash his feet in warm water, and prepare supper and bed for him. Wow. You know, regardless of what you think of the church, which to me, right at this moment, is irrelevant, right there is the epitome of what it means to be a compassionate human being, to welcome a stranger, to prepare food and a bed somewhere for them to take rest. And the sheer number of people in our world right now who are in need of those basic things and not getting them from anyone. Unbelievable stuff. Excuse me. Hospitality was enjoined not only as a social virtue, but as a religious obligation. So I've closed the window because there was rain getting in. I'm going to open the upper one. Apologies for. I'm going to open the upper one because it's very warm. Hospitality was enjoined not only as a social virtue, but as a religious obligation. Quote, reception of strangers, unquote, says the Brehon law, quote, is incumbent on every servant of the church, unquote. And in an ancient Irish sermon on Doomsday, Christianity, of course, obsessed with the idea of a doomsday, we read, quote, the Lord will say to the just, I was in need of a guest house, Chechayij, and ye gave me hospitality, unquote. Adovnon records that once, when St. Columba expected a guest at Iona, he told the brethren to prepare the hospitium, the Latin equivalent of the Czech oigage, and to have water ready to wash the stranger's feet. St. Kieran of Clonmacnoise visits Sire, now Sire Kiernan, in Kings County, on whose arrival the other Kieran, abbot of Sire, says to him apologetically, the fire having been unexpectedly put out, quote, the first thing ye, i.e. the guest and his companions, need is water to wash your feet, but just now we have no means of heating the water for you, unquote. McConlina, grumbling at the inhospitable treatment, yes, Anthony, you had it right, at the inhospitable treatment he received in Cork Monastery, complains as a great grievance that on his arrival no one came to the guest house to wash his feet, so that he had to wash them himself. Joe Butler is telling us that there is a YouTube channel, Tasting History with Max Miller. He prepares medieval recipes and then eats the dish with various results. Wow. What kind of results? Like, fascinating answer. There's Gordon Farrell. People forget that Christendom was the first European democratic institution. I find it fascinating. We all need our own Glasgovan in life, says Saoirse. The magic cow. Ah, yes, indeed. Sally Siggins is saying it's very grey in Sligo. Well, it's not only grey here, it's absolutely teeming down with rain, Sally. I hope it's at least dry up in Schligach. I have a tab open to the school's collection all the time, says Ali. Can't recommend it a source more. Yeah, it is brilliant. I think I told you before, but in the early years of my researches, and remember, we're talking 25 years ago, I had to go to the local library and ask them to order the microfiche of the school's folklore from the county library in Dundalk, wait a few days, and then go back down. And by the time I finished at the microfiche reader, my whole head would be spinning because I found it very difficult when you're skipping through, oh yeah, yeah. Anyway, never mind. All of that stuff has been put online. I'm not sure the digitization. I'm not sure if it's complete, but certainly I think a substantial amount of it has been put on, and a lot of that was done voluntarily, believe it or not. But it's a vast archive. It's a vast resource. It's really brilliant. The 3 days and 3 nights seem to have been the regular time for which guests were to be entertained free, beyond which there was no further obligation, and the hosts were free to entertain or not, just as we find among the Jews. Quote, now in those places were possessions of the chief man of the island, Melita, named Publius, who, receiving us for 3 days, entertained us courteously, unquote. That's from Acts, XXVII, which is what, 28, Acts 28, verse 7. This custom obtained in lay as well as in monastic life, and both in the Irish tales and in the lives of the saints, entertainment for 3 days and 3 nights is so constantly mentioned as to render reference to instances unnecessary. There was a guest house also attached to the principal nunneries, with a man servant to attend. A chief named Corpora or Carberry, arriving in St. Bridget's Convent in Kildare, was brought to the guest house, the Chechoigage. Bridget asked the Chimthiohig manservant who it was that had arrived. Just one young man, said the servant. Look again, said Bridget. Then he went and looked more closely, and he now saw that the stranger had a little babe clasped in his bosom. Bridget baptized the child, who afterwards became the illustrious Saint Chearnock of Clones. In the house of chiefs and other lay persons who could afford it, there was also a Teach Oigage, generally one large apartment kept specially for the reception of travellers, as we find mentioned in many passages of our old writings. And here also the custom was followed of washing the stranger's feet, which was often done by a handmaid. Yeah, Saoirse, you're absolutely right. When you go home after a few days of research on microfiche machines, you close your eyes and still see the pages flowing past. Yeah, I found it very disorientating. Is that the word? Or disorienting? Yeah. Just glad to be able to search for stuff on, because back in those days, of course, there was no search facility. You literally had to scroll through it and read it page by page. In those early times, there were in every part of the country monasteries, convents, and hostels or houses of public hospitality, so that travellers were very well off in the matter of shelter and entertainment. Much better off indeed in one respect than we are now, for we have to pay pretty smartly for the hospitality shown us, while they had everything free. After the time of the Anglo-Norman invasion, however, the hostels became fewer and gradually disappeared, and then the monasteries were the only houses of hospitality, with the exception of the dwellings of those chiefs who kept up the old custom. That the monasteries continued to discharge this most excellent function, as well as that of education, as zealously as ever, down to the time of their suppression, we have many evidences both in native writing and in the government state papers, of which one will be sufficient. When Henry VIII's order for suppression was issued, the Irish Lord Deputy, Lord Leonard Grey, and the Dublin Council petitioned the King in 1539 to exempt 6 from the order: St Mary's Abbey and Christ Church, both in Dublin; the nunnery of Grace Dieu near Swords, or Grace Dieu, looks to be French; Great Connell in Kildare near Kilcullen; and Kells and Jerpoint, both in the county Kilkenny. And they give their reasons, which show the almost incredible sacrifices made by the monasteries and nunneries to entertain their guests. And this is a quote. I think we'll be finishing on this page because it is almost 9:30. Well, it's 24 minutes past, and I want to make time for questions and comments. Quote: "For in those houses commonly and other such like, in default of common inns," yeah, this is in archaic English, which are not in this land, the king's deputy, Kinge apostrophe S, deputy Deputie, and all other his grace's council and officers, also Irishmen and others, resorting to the king's deputy in their quarters, is and hath been most commonly lodged at the costs of the said houses. Also in them young men, Yonge, and childer, both gentlemen, childer, and others, both mankind and womankind, Kynd, be brought up in virtue, learning, and in other English tongue and behaviour, to the great charges of said houses. That is to say, the womankind of the whole Englishry of this land, for the more part in the said nunnery, Grace Dieu, and the mankind in the other said houses. Also at every hosting, road, and journey, the said houses in their own proper costs findeth entertainment for as many men of war as they are appointed by the king's deputy and council for the same. And that's the end of the quote. The petition was unavailing, however, and these 6 went with the rest. No point appealing to King Henry VIII's sense of humanity or common dignity. Don't know a huge amount about King Henry VIII, other than the fact that he dissolved the monasteries and had a huge influence in the course of Irish history from that point of view. But there you go. Discombobulated. Yes, a great word, Nora. Fantastic word. I hated microfiche, says Barbara. It was really bad because I was usually looking at poorly written official records. Yeah, well, that doesn't help either. And of course, with the school's folklore, some of it was written by the teachers and some of it was written by the students, the pupils. And it was often in cursive writing, which varied an awful lot. So it could be hard to make out exactly what was being said at times, you know. Anyway, brilliant. Thank you all for watching. As I say, a momentous day from the point of view of the Fornox monograph being gone to the printers. Yay! And yeah, I'm going to have a glass of wine now. And the plan is do as little reading and work as possible this evening. Have a good night's sleep, and then Newgrange Farm tomorrow for our assembled guests. Thank you, Helen. I hope you had an enjoyable. I hope you enjoyed the live stream, the episode. Thanks for mentioning Grace Dieu. It confused me greatly when my local council rang me and that name came up instead. Somebody was going to tell me that Dickens called, what was that? It's gone now. Can't find it now. Dickens called Henry something. Anyway, it has disappeared momentarily. I know, Adele, after over a year of toil, but challenging, but enjoyable at the same time. Yeah, it's gone to print. Thank you, Rex. Hope it's not too warm and sticky over there. It's raining, but it's warm and sticky here. It feels like it should be sunny, and but it isn't. Have a few glasses in the hope of you get a decent kip. Great suggestion, Ali. I think I'll take you up on that. See you next Monday, says Tuesday Thompson. Have a great Tuesday. Hope it's a good one. Don't forget to press the like button. Thanks, Anto. Be safe, all, says Gary. Yeah, and yourself. And I hope you're in good form. Silent Pilgrim is saying good night until next Monday and a good week. Yes, indeed. To every one of you. Hope you all have a fabulous time. Oh, I'm done. I'm just going to fall asleep now. Oh, no, I better not fall asleep on a live stream because then you'll hear that I snore. Yes, that's not even. Get the Fornox book, says Sarah. Yes, indeed. And, of course, available on the Mythical Ireland website. Just in case any of you are wondering, no, it won't be available on Amazon. My books, I think some of the Liffey Press published ones may be, but my own Mythical Ireland published books are not generally available on Amazon. Debbie Sheehy, good night, Anthony. Enjoy that well-earned glass of wine. Well, I certainly hope to, and who knows, I might have a little I might have a little drop of the creator as well, you know. I might have just a tiny little nip of the nip of the toddy or what? No, what was Tom you were calling it at Ishnock? Would you like a nip of the no? I can't remember what your phrase was, but I liked it. Yeah, might have a dram basically. Adrian, Ikawa, Mokarji. Hope it's a good one. Slán go fóill, says Nora. Yes, indeed. Thank you all for watching. And on that, we'll say goodbye. Yeah. Keep an eye on the social media if you're on Facebook or Instagram. I'm also now on TikTok. Mythical Ireland has finally started publishing a couple of short videos on TikTok. I'll be honest, I'm too old. I don't understand TikTok. I don't even. I never understood Twitter either. Apparently, I didn't have the humor for Twitter. It's just funny because I have a good sense of humor. But yeah, if you're on TikTok, look up Mythical Ireland. I actually fell asleep on a Zoom after a day workshop on US time. Woke myself up after a few seconds, thank goodness. Yeah, I have a habit sometimes of falling asleep on the chair here during really busy periods. And I just have a nap, you know, and I just fall asleep like this. And sometimes I actually wake myself up with my own snoring. That has happened. Do you do talking books? No, a lot of people are looking for audiobooks. I'd love to do them, but I suppose the time is getting the time to actually sit down and record them. I don't have a studio as such. And getting the quiet time, which is usually very late at night. That's the only challenge. I'd love to have all my books available as audiobooks. Yeah. So maybe I'll get the chance to do that soon. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, folks. I'm going to go. Have a fabulous week, and we'll see you all next week for the next episode. But in the meantime, as I said, do not forget to keep an eye on the website and the social media. And if you haven't done so already, definitely do sign up for the emails. There should be another one over the next couple of days. And I say there should be because sometimes I'm just too busy and too tired to do it. But I've got to get into the discipline. I've got to be like the monks in those monasteries, you know. Nobody sits around. They all work hard. Adele, have a fabulous week. It's lovely to see you again. Thanks for nipping in. Ikawa, Slán go fóill, Kolosov, and of course the most important one, Toga Buggy. Take it easy. See you all next week. Bye-bye.